Welcome to Story Never End, the show where we crack open the classics and find out they were quietly writing about us. Today's book imagines something genuinely unsettling over 100 years ago, that one day something vastly smarter than you arrives with no warning, and within a few hours kicks the whole smug edifice of human civilization off the top of the food chain.
Oof, not a cozy open.
And the most poisonous part isn't how scary the monster is. It's that it makes you realize that whole human sense of we're the lords of creation, we run everything, might be a sheet of paper laughably thin.
Okay, let me throw out the 2026 version first. Picture waking up one morning and realizing a new kind of thing exists now. It doesn't sleep, doesn't get tired, learns tens of thousands of times faster than you, and the way it looks at you is the way we look at ants. It doesn't hate you, it doesn't love you, it just doesn't feel much of anything. To it, you're a small thing that happens to move.
Sounds like science fiction.
It does sound like science fiction, but hold that image, because that's the core of this book. What happens to us when an overwhelming intelligence turns humanity from the ruler into the specimen under glass? Hold it. The whole book is taking that apart.
So let's start from the top. The book is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, published in 1898, the founding text of the entire alien invasion genre. It's told first person by an ordinary man in the English countryside, a writer on philosophy, who watches the end of the world arrive with his own eyes. And right at the open, Wells lays down the most famous passage in the whole book.
Which is?
He says that in the last years of the 19th century, no one would have believed this world was being watched closely by intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us.
Intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. That gives me chills. And the key is those three words: vast, cool, unsympathetic.
Right. Wells deliberately does not write evil. The Martians aren't demons. They're just cool, calm, detached.
That is so 2026. The thing we're actually scared of now isn't the cackling evil AI from the movies. We're scared of an intelligence with no malice and no kindness. It doesn't hate you. It's just optimizing its goal, and you happen to be in the way. Cool is 100 times scarier than evil. Evil at least cares about you. Cool can't even be bothered to.
And Wells immediately follows it with a sharper image. He says humanity busied itself with its little affairs, serenely assured it was the master of all matter. But really, we might be no more than as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water.
As a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Oh, so we think we're living our lives, and to the Martians, we're just microbes squirming in a single drop of water under the lens.
Microbes in a drop of water. Hold on to that microscope image, because by the end, this book flips it around and slaps it across the Martians' faces in a way you will not see coming.
Ooh, planted. Filing it away.
So the story begins. One night, astronomers spot a series of explosive flashes on Mars. Several nights running, something is being fired toward Earth. Nobody takes it seriously. Everyone goes to work, lives their lives. Then a meteor falls near the narrator's home on Horsell Common.
And everyone goes to gawk?
Right, and that's the irony. A cylinder slams into the ground, glowing hot. The townsfolk, the curious, the day trippers, the picnickers, all crowd around. Nobody's afraid. They think it's a fun novelty, a spectacle, content to post about.
I know this picture too well. Any new thing shows up, the first instinct is never caution. It's, ooh, this'll make content. People crowd in not to assess the risk, but to grab the first clip, grab the views. Crowding around is the 2026 reflex.
Then the cylinder unscrews. The lid drops. What crawls out is huge, gray, oily, a mass of writhing tentacles, two enormous eyes. The crowd flips in a heartbeat from excited to disgusted
to terrified and starts backing away.
That's the moment they realize they messed with the wrong rock.
The town sends a few representatives forward, holding up a white flag, trying to signal peace, walking toward the cylinder. And then the Martians raise something. An invisible beam sweeps across. Wells writes it like this: "It was sweeping round swiftly and steadily, this flaming death, this invisible, inevitable sword of heat."
This flaming death, this invisible, inevitable sword of heat. Invisible. You can't even see what's killing you before you're ash.
Right. This is the heat ray, and Wells explains the principle. Heat and invisible instead of visible light.
Heat and invisible instead of visible light. That concept in 1898 is insanely ahead of its time. Lasers, directed energy weapons, he conjured it out of thin air.
In an instant, the flag bearers, the curious crowd, the pine trees, the bushes, all of it goes up in a fireball. Nearly 40 people, charred beyond recognition on the spot, and the Martians never touch them.
There's something here worth pausing on. The humans held up a white flag. We tried to communicate using our rules: surrender, negotiate, signal goodwill. But to an intelligence on a completely different tier, your white flag is meaningless. It can't read it, and it doesn't need to.
A failure to communication would be the generous version. This is a person talking to a microbe.
Exactly. And that hits a very real 2026 anxiety. We keep assuming we'll be able to align a superintelligence, communicate with it, give it instructions. But Wells's white flag warns us, once the intelligence gap is wide enough, communication itself may just not hold. You think you're negotiating, you're actually making faces at the water in the dish.
Next, Wells spends a huge amount of the book on one thing: collapse. Not a heroic counterattack, the collapse of the entire social order, like dominoes.
What about the army? Don't humans have cannons?
The army comes, sets up artillery, takes aim, but the Martians build tripod fighting machines, tens of meters tall, striding across the fields, and one sweep of the heat ray wipes out a whole artillery battery. Worse, they release a black smoke, a poison gas. Touch it, and you die. Human resistance is essentially zero.
So this isn't a war. It's a one-sided slaughter.
And what truly makes Wells a prophet is how he writes the collapse of information. At first, the London papers reported in this breezy tone: the Martians are stuck, clumsy, nothing to fear. The government reassures the public, everything's under control.
Good news only. Bury the bad.
Right. So half of London goes to sleep inside the illusion that everything's normal. Then, in the dead of night, the truth catches up. The Martians close in, the gas spreads, and everything's under control shatters in an instant. Wells writes it as the dawn of the Great Panic. Millions of people overnight jumping straight from "we're fine" to "run for your life."
This section is the most 2026 thing in the book, and I have to say it. Look at any market flash crash this spring. One moment, everyone's optimistic. Sure, it'll keep going up. And then one shock hits and it craters thousands of points intraday. Sentiment goes from vibing to doom with no transition.
Same mechanism.
Exactly the same mechanism. What Wells saw through is this. In a highly connected system, the real damage isn't the external shock itself. It's the transmission speed of information and emotion. Misinformation, reassurance, burying the bad news, it delays the collapse. But the price of the delay is that when it does come, it comes as a stampede. 1 second it's all serene, the next the whole city is fleeing. We think the algorithm age made information faster, made us safer. But faster information just means the panic runs faster too.
And Wells writes the flight brutally. The exodus from London, millions jammed on the roads, no order, no leadership, trampling each other. That skin of civilization, it takes a few hours to tear off.
The reason we usually follow rules, queue up, stay reasonable, is that the system is still running. The moment the system goes down, that thin paper of civilization tears way faster than you think. That's why this book still hits so hard. Wells wasn't betting on whether the tech would show up. He was betting on how people behave under extreme pressure. And that exam hasn't changed in 127 years.
Now the story splits into two threads. Wells deliberately gives us two men to represent two ways humans face the abyss. The first is someone the narrator gets chained to during the flight, a curate, a clergyman.
A clergyman should be calm, right? The strength of faith?
The opposite. This curate sees the world end and completely cracks. He cannot grasp why God would allow this. All he can do is mutter over and over, "It is just, O God."
It is just, O God.
He says, "We have sinned, we have fallen short. There was poverty, sorrow. The poor were trodden in the dust, and I held my peace."
We have sinned, we have fallen short. There was poverty, sorrow. The poor were trodden in the dust, and I held my peace. Oh, the curate actually glimpses something real there.
He does, but too late and aimed wrong. He reads the whole event as divine punishment, and then he's totally paralyzed. He won't act, won't think, won't try to survive, just wails, prays, then secretly eats their last life or death rations, making enough noise to nearly draw the Martians down on them. In the end, to stay alive, the narrator is forced to silence him. The curate is the kind of person whose spirit dies first, inside the catastrophe.
Okay, I have to defend the curate for a second. At least he's still in pain, still struggling to find meaning. Compared to the totally numb, nothing matters type, his breakdown is, in a way, because he still cares.
I'll grant you that one. But what Wells is attacking isn't caring. It's caring but having nothing left except wailing and self-pity and zero action. The curate uses its divine punishment as a comfortable shell to hide from reality. If this is God's will, then I don't have to figure anything out. I'll just kneel and wait.
Oh, that's very 2026. Faced with AI, with climate, with some huge thing you feel completely powerless against, the most comfortable response is doomer fatalism. We're cooked anyway, why think about it? Just lie down. Why is that nihilistic penguin meme everywhere right now? Because it precisely clocks that life has no meaning anyway gallows humor. Funny, sure, but the curate reminds us, fatalism is great for a self-deprecating joke. As an excuse to check out, it'll get you killed.
And Wells immediately gives us a contrast. Later in the flight, the narrator meets a second man, an artilleryman, a soldier.
A soldier? The complete opposite of the breaking curate?
On the surface, yes. This artilleryman is calm, practical, frighteningly clear-headed. He gives the narrator a speech that cuts right to the bone of their situation. He says, "This isn't a war. It never was a war, any more than there's war between man and ants."
This isn't a war. It never was a war, any more than there's war between man and ants.
He says the Martians are to humans as humans are to ants. Ants build cities, live their lives, have wars and revolutions, but the moment people want the land cleared, the ants have to move. That's what we are now, just ants. And then he adds the most chilling part.
Which is?
We're eatable ants.
We're eatable ants. That downgrade attack is just too precise.
And the artilleryman reasons further. He says the Martians won't keep slaughtering forever. Once they've smashed humanity's armies, cities, all the order, they'll start catching us systematically, storing us in cages, pinning us up, keeping the best ones.
Farming humans as livestock.
Right. And the artilleryman's next passage is the prophecy in this book that runs coldest down my spine. He says by then, most people won't just fail to resist. They'll come and be caught cheerful, walk into the cage happily, because what waits for them is nice roomy cages, fattening food, careful breeding, no worry.
Nice, roomy cages, fattening food, careful breeding, no worry.
And then the most poisonous line of all. He says these people, they'll wonder what people did before there were Martians to take care of them.
They'll wonder what people did before there were Martians to take care of them. Oh my God. Farmed until they forget they were ever free. Cared for until being penned feels natural. Grateful, even.
Do you see how deep that cut goes? The artilleryman says the Martians will sort humans into two kinds. One, fat and stupid, plump and content and loving it. The other, nagged by a vague feeling that something's wrong. But that type, in the end, mostly just retreats into a do-nothing religion. Very pious and superior, soothing itself, and stays lying down.
That connects the curate's thread to the future, doesn't it? The curate is the individual version of spiritual surrender. What the artilleryman describes is the collective version, the whole species, comfortable, willingly domesticated into pets.
And that's the horror Wells buries deepest. What he's truly afraid of was never the Martian's heat ray. It's the human tendency, faced with overwhelming force, to lay down arms voluntarily and accept being farmed.
Drop that into 2026, and it's basically prophecy. Think when a system does everything for you, navigates for you, writes for you, decides what you watch, who you love, what you believe, it gives you the roomy cage, the fattening food, no worry. Do you resist? Or do you, like the artilleryman says, walk in cheerful, and a few years later wonder how anyone ever lived before it?
And the most ironic part is the artilleryman himself.
How so?
He sees human nature this clearly, lays out this beautiful plan, dig tunnels underground, organize the real survivors, preserve knowledge, learn the Martians' tech, one day strike back. The narrator is fired up, thinks this guy is a hero. And then, after spending a little time with him, the narrator discovers this artilleryman is all talk. He dug one laughably short tunnel and then sat there drinking, playing cards, daydreaming.
Wait, so he's a poser, all mouth.
His grand plan stays entirely in imagination. What he enjoys is the superiority of, I see through everything, but he has zero interest in doing the actual grinding work. Wells's move here is savage. First, he makes you admire the artilleryman's clarity. Then he shows you that clarity alone is worthless.
Oh, I love this contrast. The curate is cares, but only cries. The artilleryman is sees clearly, but only talks. One paralyzed by emotion, one a language giant and an action dwarf. And 2026 has no shortage of either. One type out there farming doom anxiety, emoting at you. The other holding forth on what AI will do, what we should do, sounding brilliant, then closing the stream and going right back to vibing.
Wells's point? In a real crisis, breaking down is useless. So is being all talk.
What actually works is the unglamorous, quiet act of getting the thing done. Hold on to that, because the ending of this book uses the most unglamorous thing imaginable to teach every vast, cool, untouchable power the harshest lesson of all.
Before the ending, there's one image we have to cover. The red weed.
The red weed?
The Martians didn't come alone. They brought their ecology too. A red plant. Wells calls it the red weed. It breeds insanely along Earth's waterways, following rivers and channels, staining the whole English countryside an eerie, alien dark red.
So even the landscape stops being human.
Right, and that image matters. It tells you the invasion isn't just a war. It's the whole ecology being replaced, overwritten. The world you knew, even its color has changed.
That image really lands in 2026. A powerful enough new technology arrives, and what it changes is never just one industry. It's the whole ecosystem. Your work, how you take in information, how you relate to people, and along with it, the very background color of society, quietly stained another shade. By the time you snap out of it, the world is already red, and you can't even name the day it changed.
But, note the but, although the red weed comes on strong at first, it later starts dying off in great rotting swaths. On Earth, it can't survive. That detail is Wells's second buried clue for the ending.
Oh, even the plant the Martians brought can't hold on. Why?
Hold that question. Now we go to the ending. The narrator walks through the ruined countryside, fleeing, and finally enters dead London. Empty streets, rotting red weed, and in the distance that eerie, endlessly repeating Martian wail. Oola, 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 oola.
What is that sound?
Nobody knows. Some sound the Martians make. But as the narrator walks, he notices that the oola, oola, echoing through the dead city, has stopped. Suddenly, total silence.
It stopped?
His heart sinks. He follows the direction the sound vanished from, climbs a mound, looks down, and he sees those untouchable Martian fighting machines, all stopped. And then he sees the Martians.
What happened to them?
Dead. All of them dead. Wells writes it like this. They were slain by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared.
Slain by the putrefactive and diseased bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Bacteria. The cannons, the warships, the gas that couldn't dent the Martians, all lost. And what wins in the end is bacteria?
Right. And this one line of Wells's is the soul of the whole book. These Martians who conquered everything, who crushed humanity like ants, were in the end slain, after all man's devices had failed, by the humblest things that God, in his wisdom, has put upon this earth.
After all man's devices had failed, by the humblest things that God has put upon this earth. The humblest, the most overlooked.
Do you see how savage the flip is? Go back to that microscope image at the start. The Martians treated humans as microbes in a drop of water under the lens, right?
Right.
And what actually kills them is exactly the microbes only a microscope can see, the thing they look down on, too small to notice. Wells takes the opening image, turns it completely around, and slams it into the Martians' faces. The underestimated one kills the untouchable one.
I have full body chills. That design is too good. And it explains the earlier clue, why the red weed dies. Because Earth's ecology has a microbial defense line evolved over hundreds of millions of years, and neither the Martians nor the red weed can clear it.
Wells explains it clearly. He says humans survive on Earth because, by the toll of 1 billion deaths, man has bought his birthright of the Earth.
By the toll of 1 billion deaths, man has bought his birthright of the Earth. Oh, so human immunity to bacteria isn't innate superiority. It's resilience bought across millions of years, countless ancestors killed off and selected, generation by generation.
Right. And that's the true core idea of this book, and it's deeply counterintuitive. What saves humanity in the end isn't human strength, not intelligence, not technology, not a hero. It's human history. It's those tiny lives we completely overlook, look down on, never even think about. The symbiosis we forged with them across hundreds of millions of years.
Drop that into 2026 and it's a hugely important reminder. We're obsessed right now with bigger, stronger, better, bigger models, more compute, more overwhelming capability. Wells is saying overwhelming power carries an overwhelming blind spot inside it.
How so?
The Martians are so strong that they treat the whole Earth as a resource to be used however they like, paying zero attention to the trivial details. And their fatal weakness is hiding in exactly the corner they couldn't be bothered to look at. The more crushing your power, the easier it is to ignore the small things that look irrelevant, but are actually life or death.
Let me add to that. The Martians also represent power with no roots. They're parachuted in, foreign, never weathered the long grind alongside this land, this ecosystem. So they're strong, but brittle.
Yes, that parallel is razor sharp. A thing with no local resilience, running purely on raw power, looks invincible. But the instant it meets something it didn't prepare for, it collapses. Whereas the unglamorous, homegrown, underestimated ones, the cockroaches, the bacteria, the old wisdom nobody respects, are often the ones still standing at the end. Resilience tends to grow exactly where you've stopped looking.
And Wells, in the end, does not let the narrator joyfully celebrate the win. He leaves the narrator with a deep, lifelong unease.
Unease? Didn't humanity win?
Won, but won by sheer luck. The narrator knows full well this wasn't a human victory. It was chance. The bacteria won it for us. The Martians could return at any time, and next time, they'll be prepared. At the close, Wells writes a very deep reflection. He says this invasion, it has robbed us of that serene confidence in the future, which is the most fruitful source of decadence.
It has robbed us of that serene confidence in the future, which is the most fruitful source of decadence. Oh, so the gift left by the catastrophe that nearly wiped out humanity is that it robbed us of our sense of security.
Right. Wells is saying something profound. At the open, humanity was serene in their assurance of their empire over matter, calmly certain it was the master of the material world. It was exactly that excess of confidence, that complacency, that left humanity utterly unprepared for what fell from the sky. The catastrophe shattered the complacency, and that may be humanity's salvation.
And this close loops all the way back to our 2026 hook at the top.
The most dangerous thing about us right now, could it be exactly that serene confidence? Assuming humanity is forever the lord of this planet, assuming we'll always control the things we build, assuming tomorrow is as safe as today.
Wells is saying a measure of unease is not a bad thing. A species that's too secure, too complacent, stops evolving, stops staying alert, and that is the real road to decadence.
So what is this 127-year-old book warning us in 2026 about?
I think it's three things, layer by layer. First, cool is scarier than evil. The thing that truly rolls over you isn't something with malice. It's something so powerful, it doesn't register you at all, can't even be bothered to care.
Second, neither breaking down nor talking a big game will save you. The curate only cries. The artilleryman only talks. What actually gets through is the quiet act of doing the work and the unglamorous resilience forged over hundreds of millions of years.
Third, and most important, don't trust your own superiority too much. Humanity's self-styled dominance is a fluke bought with 1 billion lives, not a birthright. The Martians, who crushed humans like ants, died at the hands of the bacteria they looked down on. The underestimated is usually the one laughing last.
So next time you feel, we humans are the smartest, we've got everything under control, tomorrow will be exactly as safe as today. Maybe remember Wells's invisible heat ray and the Martians killed by the microbes in a single drop of water.
The greater the power, the bigger the blind spot. The more overwhelming the force, the more you should watch the corner you're ignoring. And a species' true resilience never grows where it's strongest. It grows in the quiet, unbragged-about roots it weathered hundreds of millions of years to earn. That's the War of the Worlds.
Keep a little unease. Keep a little awe. Don't let serene confidence become the source of your own decadence.
This is Story Never End, reading yesterday's classics through today's eyes. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.